Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WNR Body Transformation Podcast. Or in case if you are watching this on YouTube, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video slash podcast, I'm going to be covering the topic of how do I get big people to change. So I work with a lot of people. I work with different types of people, people like dudes who want to do photo shoots, or really obese individuals, depressed soccer moms, right? Ladies in their 40s, ladies in their 30s, 25-year-olds. Just I worked with all types of people basically. So before that, first of all, why should you listen to me in the first place? But I've been a coach for almost a decade. I've got a huge portfolio of results. I practice what I preach, and I worked in a company where my main job was to transform people basically. That was basically the main my main job for a couple of years. So yeah, I walk the talk. I continue to invest in myself. I look the part as well. And if you're not competing and you're not able to lose weight or something like that, it's not your genetics. It's as simple as that. You just have shit habits. As simple as that. And first of all, why should you listen to me? Used to work in a company where my main job was to transform people. This is me. You guys can have a look. And this is just some of my work. I worked with a lot of men from the dating industry as well, who want to look good, to impress the women, get laid a ton. So yeah, this is the content of the podcast that I'm going to be covering today. Understanding the basic principles of fat loss, understanding the basic principles of weight loss, understanding where the big client or the big person is at psychologically, because they've got some not so great habits accumulated, right? Which card to play when, basically. Coaching them versus just simply giving them a bit of a plan, right? Those are two separate things. So when it comes to weight loss, what is the most important thing? You want to be in a caloric deficit. It sounds so fucking simple. It sounds so basic, but most of the people don't get it, or when they do get it, they still live in denial, and they still do silly shit like Weight Watchers, or the keto, or the carnivore diet, all of that rubbish basically. But you gotta realize if you are simply eating lesser calories than what you burn, you'll lose weight. Or if you burn more calories than what you eat, you will lose weight. It's as simple as that. Being in a caloric deficit is the crucial thing when it comes to fat loss, regardless of how fat the person is or how lean the person is. So with regards to these really obese individuals, does it make sense to play the card of simply getting them to move more, reducing the caloric intake? Well, for most of the people out there, right, I like to do a combination of both basically, because if you simply reduce your food intake, that's shown from a research perspective to have better dietary compliance, because you're ooh, you know what, I'm on a diet, right? Shit's getting serious. But if you reduce it way too much, you're going to go into nutrient deficiency, and that's going to be really, really dangerous for females. It's going to get them to lose their period, etc. You want to be in a moderate caloric deficit basically. You want to moderately reduce your food, and you simply want to move more, because when you move more, your metabolism is going to function properly. Your metabolism has not changed from the time when you were in university and all of that. So please save yourself the effort of thinking that it's aging. It just slightly diminishes things by 3% every year. That's 30 calories per year. It's just think it through, right? When you were in university, even though you were eating shit, you didn't have a lot of money. So you were eating, when you did eat shit, it was less of it. And now you got a lot of money because of financial success, etc. As a result of which you can afford more food, and you're simply moving less because you're driving pretty much everywhere, right? In university, you were walking everywhere. It was so basic, right? You don't get it. So for most of the people out there, I like to have them do a combination of both. Now, how does this make sense to that really obese person out there? Well, we're going to be covering that in the next few slides. So yeah, but I just want to explain the context or the framework within which we make decisions when it comes to really obese people. The second thing, understanding the basic principles of fat loss, right? The most important principle is you want to be in a caloric deficit. That's going to cause you to lose weight. How do you achieve a caloric deficit? Simply reduce your food intake. formally or informally, either through calorie tracking or through portion control, or just like in case if you're having 3 meals or 4 meals a day, bump it down to 3 or 2 meals a day, basically, whatever works for you, right? But don't reduce it too much and simply get yourself to move more, right? That's going to cause you to lose weight. Now, you want most of the weight loss to come from fat, right? So the second most important variable that I'll look at is protein intake, right? Because muscle, in simplistic terms, is made up of protein, and a high protein intake simply helps in muscle recovery, as a result of which you're going to be retaining muscle, and most of the weight loss created by the deficit is going to come from fat. It's so simple. Then, the second most important variable that you want to look at is resistance training, right? Because when you go inside the gym and train harder, and you progressively over, let's probably say you go from 100 kilos on a squat to something like 200 kilos. What do you think is generating that force? Is it something like fat? I don't think so. It is muscle that's generating the force, because muscle is functional, right? It helps you function on a day-to-day basis with the various activities that you do, right? So muscle is moving that weight. So a high protein intake combined with progressive overload inside the gym is going to make you grow muscle. But at the same time, you're on a calorie deficit, so most of the weight loss created by the calorie deficit, by you having to slightly reduce your food and slightly move more, is going to come from fat. It's that dead simple, right? That combined with the weight loss diet, fat loss, it's simple basically. Obviously, nutrient sources, etc., make a huge difference too, but that's a whole new other topic. I'm not going to be covering that in this video right here, right? But just to give you the gist of things, let's probably say you fill in your protein sources from like crappy protein bars, right? And protein shakes, right? If you're fucking doing that, please don't do that, right? You're a lazy fucking meal prepper. Don't ever do that shit, right? Whereas if you're filling it from like more, how do I say this? Like from more chicken breast, or like from like more 5% beef minces, or like some salmon, smoked salmon, right? Or turkey breast. That's meat, high in protein, has got like more nutrients, and your bodily systems will function far more better basically. So, and that also, how do I say this? That also helps you stay full, right? That also ensures better dietary compliance. So yeah, the next thing is understand where your big client is at psychologically, because they got a series of negative habits accumulated, right? They might have some binge eating disorders, right? If you got someone with an eating disorder, yeah, you can help them, but if their eating disorders and their emotional eating patterns tend to override the whole process, and they show signs of like anorexia or bulimia or whatever, you might want to refer them out to a specialist, because that's beyond the scope of a body transformation coach. But for my obese people out there, or for my big people out there, I usually like to do the bare minimum to reap out the maximum basically, right? You want to understand where they are at psychologically. Let's probably say if they're used to eating utter shit basically, right? All like hyper palatable foods, right? Utter junk. Then just simply getting them to switch to eating healthy without any formal portion control rules is simply going to reduce their calorie intake and keep them full, right? Because like, let's probably say if you just eat chips, chocolates and cakes, right? And you switch over to eating like more kebabs, like more vegetables, right? Not the best example. That in that big person's world is still better than, how do I say this? Eating chips, chocolates and cakes, and that's simply going to have like far more low calorie basically. If they're used to barely moving, if they're like a couch potato all fucking day, right? Slightly increase the expenditure up, get them to wear like a bit of a fitness watch, right? I'm wearing a fitness ring. And simply build their awareness around their movement, right? You don't need to throw in a lot of cardio or throw in zone 2 cardio for an obese person. You want to look at where the person is at. So yeah, these are just informal ways to create a calorie deficit. If they go out and eat like 7 days a week, just simply bump it down to 5 days per week, informal ways. If they start eating right from the time when they're waking up all the way till the night, basically, you can just incorporate like a fasting eating pattern, basically, because that simply creates another calorie deficit as well, right? Have a conversation with them, explain it to them, like it's going to be a long-term process, like a year or perhaps even 2. You're perhaps even going to slip up a couple of times, right? So let them know what to expect, and let them know that you're supporting them with empathy, but also every now and then don't hesitate to tell them to suck it up, because you are their first point of contact. Before you start working with anyone, not even a big person. Get them to fill in a questionnaire, click their photos, and get them to track data daily. Tracking data is going to ensure like you slightly override the emotional negative eating patterns or the negative emotional habits that have accumulated around your own health and fitness, and it's just simply going to build awareness. Get them to check in daily, get them to measure their weight daily, basically, or fasted, right? Because what you're trying to improve, if you want to make a lot of money, you want to check your bank balance every day. If you want to like lose weight, go and check your weight. I mean, if you want to improve your look, click your photos and measure it on a weekly, like compare it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, right? Some of them might be too intimidated, but you got to be like really, really tight with them about it. If they're way too intimidated, reduce the frequency of the weigh-ins, basically. But reduce the frequency of the pictures. But it needs to happen. Know which card to play when. For a lot of people, right? I like to do 2 simple habits. Do it till it solidifies and then stack more, right? I get this tip from the book Atomic Habits, right? But if the person is coming to me from a really, really shit place, I make them do one simple thing. It might sound really, really boring, but this is coaching, right? The science is on one end, the coaching is on the other end. Right? Movement, just simply start off with steps. That's so simple, right? Don't change anything. Even if they're eating utter junk, if you get them to move more, the expenditure will go up and they'll lose weight, right? The first thing, this is just my like course of action. Obviously, it ranges from person to person. Clean out the environment. If junk food is in your environment, you will want to eat it, right? It's as simple as that. For me, like if I see chocolate, I'm like, son of a bitch, put that away, right? Eating healthy plus cleaning out the environment, eating mindfully. When they are like eating, get them to eat whilst they are being present, right? No YouTube, no Netflix, etc. Ask them to chew their meals, basically. 20 chews per meal, right? Get them to start being mindful about their own internal cues. Adding in protein and vegetables in every meal, right? This simply ensures like you are full up. That's like the next stage. Once when they nail that, then start like a portion size based method. Like this comes from Precision Nutrition. 2 poundfuls of protein, 2 fistfuls of vegetable, 1 cup tan of carbs, 1 thumb size of fat, 3 to 4 meals, right? If they're losing weight on that, ride that for as long as possible. Then, if progress halts, then get them to track their calories and macros, basically. Sleep, regardless of which phase you are in, get them to nail their sleep, right? Whether you're facing with a fancy nutritional approach or a cardio approach, you always want to be nailing your sleep. Get them to have good sleep hygiene, right? Because poor sleep is going to mess around with your cravings, etc. Training. This can be nailed after the above 3 are nailed. And usually for a lot of them, you get them to do big movements, right? Heavy presses, heavy rows, some form of a squat, some form of a hip hinge, because that's going to tax the body so much, as a result of which, the expenditure is going to be higher, as a result of which they're going to get more fat loss, right? I usually like to just start them off with like machine-based exercises and then slowly and steadily sprinkle up a bit more like free weights, basically, and then a combination of the two. So yeah, coaching them versus giving them a plan. Coach with empathy, but don't always be a softie, basically. Don't hesitate to call them out in a respectful way. Give them a tailor-made plan, but also support them. They'll tend to have like body image issues as they get lighter. A couple of my clients had that, right? So explain it to them beforehand. Like when you do lose the weight, you won't be able to believe it, but that's something that you're going to come on terms with, basically. These are some of the big people that I've coached. The longer you stay in a deficit, the easier things are going to get. So yeah. Now, what else did I also want to mention? Right. Also let them know that towards the end, when they get leaner and leaner and leaner, there's going to be some amount of loose skin, right? Because as the fat cells accumulate, when you're like chronically overeating over a given period of time, with every fat cell that you accumulate, you're going to get new skin cells. So let's probably say when you do drop the body fat, you're not going to reduce the number of the fat cells and the skin cells. You're just going to simply reduce the size of the fat cells and the skin cells. But the cells are still going to be there, as a result of which there's still going to be some loose skin, basically. So yeah, you just got to be like really, really explain all of this to them right from the start, so that they don't have any sort of disappointment issues towards the end, basically. So yeah, people, if you found this useful, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and follow me for more tips. Whether you're doing this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and if you'd like to transform your body, right, get in the best shape of your life, optimize your health, your hormones, your sleep, your stress, your digestion. All you got to do is fill in the application form below. And yeah, have a nice one.